We'll see where we get to. I know there are some areas that we need to address, police being one. So police recommended increase is about 4.4% over their 2019 approved budget. So there's some areas there that we can deal with to help reduce some of the numbers on the police side. We're also seeing some pressures, frankly, in some of the ABCs, not just police, but in some of the ABCs, like I think Life After 50 as an example, where the United Way is cutting their funding by $60,000 next year, so they're coming to the city asking us to offset the cut by the United Way. And it's very difficult for us to step into the shoes of every group that's being cut by the United Way. But we recognize that that's a request, and council will have to deal with whether they propose to do that moving forward. So there are some pressures certainly from the provincial level. There's pressures when it comes to United Way's reallocation of funding, and just generally, as I mentioned, on the police side. So there is some room to work in here, to maneuver here, but it's a little tighter this year than it was last year from my analysis of the budget so far. But my goal is to get it down to a more reasonable level.
The one thing I might add to that is that although overall it's 3.5%, when you look at the operations of the city departments, minus the 1.2% increase for increased capital spending, it's 1.2%, which is well below the level of inflation. And we've given council a way to get to potentially zero should they wish to cut certain things. So although 3.5% sounds like it's much higher than inflation, when you look at the operations, they're well below the inflation level. The rest is either from the ABCs that we don't control, and capital enhancement, the 1.2%, which is more spending to maintain our roads and sewers.
Well, and just to that point, I mean, if you're starting at 3.5 and you back out the 1.2 for the asset management plan, you're now down to 2.3 as a starting point, which would be not easy, but relatively easy to get under 2%. And so really in this case, it's the asset management plan that is driving a big part of the recommended increase by administration. And frankly, it's been well discussed by council that they want to see us move forward, and it's not like we have a choice. We have to come forward with, as the province says, we have to come forward with a plan that shows how we're going to manage the sustainability of our assets and then figure out how to fund that plan. And so we're trying to do it in a reasonable way. I know some members of council are struggling with 1.16, which is why it's going to budget. They're thinking maybe it should be a lower amount for a longer period of time. Administration is running those numbers, of course, to give council more information. But we know, I mean, intuitively, you know that if you extend it over a longer period of time, then you're going to need more money, right? And so it's not that it's a hard thing to calculate. It's just it's a choice that has to be made, and it'll be one that council has to struggle with in this budget.